Okay, I wanted to create a quick video on how to get started at least with this basketball scoring system. So the first thing that we're going to want to do is we want to download this scoreboard image. So in order to do that, we click on it, open a new window, so click on the three dots, then hit the download button. Now we're going to go to Scratch, and I'm going to go File, New, and then I'm going to go to Costumes. Actually, I'm going to delete this sprite right here, and in my backdrop, I'm going to import that thing that I just downloaded, which should be right here, I think. Just give it a second. Nope. Import, I think I called it Scoreboard. There it is right there, Scoreboard. And then I'm going to go ahead and move this so that it's kind of at the top right there. And that looks pretty good to me. Okay, the next thing that I want to do is I'm going to add variables for all the fouls and all of the points. So I'm going to do just one side. You actually need to do both sides. So I'm going to go to data and I'm going to make a variable and I'll call it like player 2 because this is player number 2 fouls. So I'll do F for fouls. Okay, and then I'm going to change this to a large readout and just kind of put it next to player number 2 fouls, kind of like right there. Then I'm going to make another variable and I'm going to call it player 2 points. Click OK. Again, I'm going to right click on this, go to my large readout, and I'm going to put that right next to here for points. Now I'm going to make another variable and I'll call it player 15 fouls. Convert it to the large readout, put it right there. Now I'll make another variable and call it player 15 points. Click OK, right click on this, large readout, put it right there. So now we have, you need to do this obviously for player number 25, 11, 22, and also all of the visitor players. So you got that. Next I'm going to make a variable for my total points. So home points. Okay, I would right click on this, large readout. That is going to go here. Okay. And then you're going to create one for visitors. And then I also need to make another variable for like home fouls. Again, turn this to the large readout, and then put that for my home fouls right there. And then I'm also actually going to make a variable here for timeouts too. Timeouts for home. And then right click, large. Okay, so obviously you're going to need to get all of the players for both home and away. You're going to need to do the visitor score as well, visitor foul as well, and visitor timeouts as well. So set up all of your variables first. I think that's the first thing that you should do. So now that I have this, I'm going to create some sprites down here. And I'm going to create a sprite for every player, and then points, and then fouls. And then you would also create one for all these players over here. So I'm going to go and I'm going to create a new sprite. So to create a new sprite, I can just go here. And this one I'm going to rename this to info. We'll call this one player 2. Okay, and then our sprite in here, we're going to go ahead and maybe we can add a little blue dot here. So I'll go ahead and add a little blue dot, maybe blues for home. And then I'm going to go ahead and type in here player 2. Alright, and then let's move this down here. Whoops. Actually, I'm going to select this and I'm going to move it so it's a little bit closer to player 2. So it kind of looks like this. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'll create another one for player 15. So I'm going to create a new sprite. I'm going to go to info. I'll call this one player 15. I can see player 15 right there. Go back. I can add in, if I go to vector, let's add in another ball. Okay. And then let's add some text right next to this, and we'll call it player 15. Okay. And I'll move that so it's right next to there. And then let's go ahead and, whoops, that's not what we wanted to do. So let's step backwards. Player 15. Let's move that over here. And then again, maybe I'll just take this, move it up there so it's right next to it. Alright, that looks pretty good. And then maybe I can move this sprite so it's right there. So I got a sprite for player 2, player 15. You're going to obviously want to create a sprite for player 25, 11, 22, and then also sprites on this side for number 12, 10, 35, 21, and 15. Now notice there is a player 15 for both the home and away team, so you're going to have to name those things differently, maybe player 15 home, player 15 away. Now, let's talk about scripts. Okay, so I'm also going to create, before I do scripts, I'm going to go ahead and create a new sprite, and we're just going to call this thing, let's go to info, I'll go 1 point. Alright, and then text 1 point. And then I'll make like a, I don't know, a little circle here for 1 point. Alright, let me move this over here. Whoops. That's not what I wanted. Here's my, come on, let me grab onto this sprite here. And maybe I can fill that little circle in with red. Okay, so if player 2 gets 1 point, let's write a script for that. So first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to create some more variables here. So I'm going to go to scripts. I'm going to make a variable and I'll call it player 2 clicked. Okay, now I don't want player 2 clicked to be visible, so I'm going to go ahead and just uncheck that. Now I'm going to go to my scripts here for player 2, and I'm going to add in code that looks like this. So you can see I didn't want to just type all this out. But what happens is when this is clicked and I click on player number 2, player 2 clicked is set to 0 right now. When I click on that, notice it sets that to 1, it waits 3 seconds, and then it sets it back to 0. So when I click on that, this just sets it to 1, and then it waits for 3 seconds and sets it to 0. That's perfect. That's exactly what I want. Now let's take a look at the 1 point thing. So if I'm touching this 1 point and player 2 is clicked, then it'll change player 2 points by 1. If player 11 was clicked, then it would change player 1. And the same thing can be said for 2 points. So if player 2 clicked, which remember when you click on this, so when I click on player 2, it changes that to 1 for 3 seconds. So if during that 3 seconds I click on 2 points, then it's going to change my variable player 2 points by 2. So kind of watch what happens. If I go 2 and then I click on 2 points, that's going to change that by 2 points. If I click on player 11, click on 3 points, it changes player 11 by 3 points right there. So that's exactly what I want. Again, you need to create buttons for fouls too, for timeouts. You need to create the home score, so you need to add all of these points together and put that number right there. Then you'll have to add all these points together right there and put that number right there. You're also going to have to do things for fouls. Things like that. So take a look at this code carefully. Here's the code that I have for 3 points, and here's the code that I have for the players. I don't have any code for my backdrop. So hopefully this is helpful. Let me know if you have any questions.